Hey guys, it's Doesn't Matter,
Ellen the Dream.
and this is episode 20 of our podcast, Confessions of a Stan Mixer Edition. Today is a episode that you guys asked for once upon a time, a very long time ago. And it is us going over our opinion or thoughts on what is the best and worst of each era. We're going to start with the DNA era and work our way down. Maybe we should have included the X Factor era, but I didn't, so we're starting at
Oh, I didn't
DNA.
think about that.
Yeah, we didn't, so we're not doing it. um, and I mean, really, like, quick overbrief, right? Like, what was the best thing about X Factor? They got formed. Everything else is kind of like you know?
Yeah.
Um, so we'll just move right on to DNA. My pros for the DNA era is that I'm including the X Factor tour and the DNA tour as like we got two tours in this era because the X Factor tour, I know it would make sense to put it in the X Factor era, but A, we didn't do an X Factor era, and B, it's like after they won the show, so it's like post X Factor. So anyway, I put down that we got two tours and the live vocals galore lip syncing was um I mean they still lipped a few things here and there, but like compared to what happens in the future eras, live vocals galore and like live choruses and like I just live vocals galore all the way around. We got Missy Elliott as a feature, which was like Jesse's dream feature, and then once they got her, it led them all to Nicki Minaj, and that one took longer. And then the other pro that I have is the U.S. like impact that it made, like the push as well as like the result of the push, right? So like, what was it like getting number 4 debut on Billboard, like beating a Spice Girl record. I'm sorry, I'm moving the mic around, guys. and and then like they came over here to promo and stuff, and they performed Wings everywhere and DNA, and I just feel like there was a big like they started off strong with a big push towards the US, I feel like. And so I think that was like really nice. And those are kind of my pros.
All of what you said, this one is kind of similar to what you said, but they had a very successful start for being their first album in the era on their own away from X Factor. They definitely
Oh yeah, number 1 single. How didn't I write that? Their first number 1 single that like was, them and not like Cannonball.
Yeah, because lots of X Factor artists always tend to fall off like the face of the earth and you never hear from them again, or like it takes a while to find them again, but they stayed strong um, right off the bat.
Mhm.
So I feel like that was a really big deal and a really good thing. Another thing is that I feel like they had a pretty good idea of what their audience was pretty early on. And so the songs that they had definitely reached that like demographic that they were like A aiming for and B already had. Um, so I think that definitely helped their success too. And this is like their songs were just like really well written right off the bat. I feel like the DNA album actually had like just some really nice songs um that for being their first album was pretty surprising to me because I wasn't expecting that. They This is a new bullet point by the way. They traveled a lot for once again it being their first era. Um the common theme here is their first era, guys. But they traveled a lot. Like they were in the US. They just did a bunch of promo and
But
made
yeah,
their like
that
little
that
footprint.
US push was hardcore.
Yeah. And they made like their footprint everywhere. So that definitely opened doors for them later on. And this is like a really small thing, but it's something that I really liked. But the live band in the concert for the DNA tour, 10 out of 10. Love that live band.
Except here's my complaint.
Oh no.
All of the audio was shit.
Yes, that's the only thing, but it's if I would have been there, oh, it would have been so good.
Because with the combination of it being 2013, right? So you already have like shit recording devices,
Yeah.
not like what we have now. Because like what we carry around in our pockets with our iPhones is like a recording device is actually like insane compared to what we had in 2013.
Hmm.
Um, and like we're much closer to professional gear equipment than we were like with the shit things we were using before. Um, so A, there's that. And then uh and I'm not talking about like iPhones in particular, guys, because obviously iPhones like were around this time. I mean like the technology in the iPhone. Um, just to be clear. Anyway, so there's that aspect of it, but then like but in combination with like the audio and the microphones on these cameras like not being as good and like distorting easier and stuff, the live band really kills the audio and like distorts it real hard. And then also on the recording because it's a live band playing over a track, the instrumental is so loud that on the recordings it drowns out their vocals, which like isn't what happens most likely live because the arena is set up to give like a surround sound experience. However, the phone is only recording a certain like direction. So if you were close to an instrument, if you were close to like a speaker that was pushing out instrumental, then like that's what you picked up, you know what I mean? You didn't get the clear vocals that you probably heard while you were there. And so that's why I'm always bitter about the live band because it ruined it ruined the fact that we got live vocals. um, However, if I had been there, the live band would have been really cool. So like both sides.
Yeah, it just makes for a good experience. But like if you're watching it from the outside, it's not as
As a
good.
US fan who didn't have the opportunity to even attempt to go, even if I had been obsessed in 2013, it sucks.
Yeah.
Moving on to cons. Well, there's a con to the live band. There you go. I also have that like it was only like a small theater UK tour, which like isn't a surprise because obviously it was their first, but it was still, you know, it's still small and short and all of that. And then I have that the album was like a bit of a mixed bag. I feel like it wasn't really a cohesive album because they didn't know what their sound was and they were trying to like combine all of their taste into one album and stuff. So it's a bit like of a mixed bag, I think. And then my other con was they were still new to everything, and so, like, the music videos and, like, the stage performances can feel a little bit awkward sometimes because they don't look quite as comfortable as, you know, they do now, um, or even how they did going into, like, later eras. That's not, like, only the DNA era, like, they're still a little awkward, like, in the Salute era too.
Yeah, I also have the whole tour about it being smaller being a con, which is sad because I feel like if they would have done a bigger tour, they would have been fine still. So like that's kind of like a we won't like ever know because it didn't happen type of thing. I also have that they were new to the music scene, so they didn't really know what they were doing a lot of the time. It was a little bit awkward. They weren't as professional, which I don't want to say is a bad thing, but they it just adds into like that they didn't really know what they were doing and it was more obvious back then. Um, and they were still a little bit attached to X Factor. I feel like they were very branded still. People still knew them as like the winning X Factor band, which like it's not a bad thing. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing, but I feel like it was a little bit hard for them to make their own name because people knew them as like, oh, that group that was on X Factor, and so that just made it them get bashed a little bit harder by headlines. So that's my little take on that. And also, they just had a little bit of a younger vibe because that was the audience they were geared for. Um, and they already had a. I can't say this for certain because I wasn't a fan then, but I feel like their audience in 2013 was a lot younger.
Yeah, so, like, here's what I think happened as someone,
Okay.
like, looking back on it with hindsight. X Factor set them up to be a kids group.
Yeah.
Like, X Factor branded them as a group, and they branded them for really young girls, like preteen girls. That was the demographic. And the way they're dressed, the way they were portrayed on the show, the edit they got, the way Talisa talked about them, calling them little muffins, the styles that were given to them, the personalities that were kind of pushed onto them, was all catered to gaining them a audience of kids and to making them appeal like marketable to children and to young girls. And obviously that was very successful, and part of the reason they did that was to get the girls the votes they needed every week to win, because that's who was voting for them. And obviously, like, also, just common sense that that market is a really good market to put your foot into when you're like a new artist, because those, I mean, we're all proof of this, right? Like preteen, teen, early 20s were the group that get obsessed, that buy, that invest, that go online, create hype, vote, buy things, like stream, right? Like we're the demographic that will get you success early on and like really go hardcore. So this is partly why, like, some maybe more like quote unquote credible, more mature artists still do well in the charts, but they're not as famous. They don't have as many hits. They don't have like, they didn't make as much of a lasting impression on pop culture, like whatever it is, because they don't have that, like that, their fan base is not young girls. Obviously, guys also take part in stan culture and stuff like that, but typically it's usually dominated by girls. So that's why I keep saying that as like a marketing demographic. And so I think that like it was used intelligently in order to keep them on the show and to give them the opportunity to win and be successful. However, once they managed to do that and then they were like, we're actually going to be successful, that image and that marketability really fucked them to this day.
Yeah, like at the time, because I was like a small fan of them back in 2013, early 20, I'm gonna say like late 2012, early 2013, like around when Wings came out, because I knew Wings and like Change Your Life at the time, and I was loving it. But that was because like I was at the age they were targeting. Um, but yeah, like kind of what you said, it. I don't want to say it ruined them, but it definitely held them back a lot because
It's such a
now.
coin flip because it probably, like, is the reason they even had a shot to begin with.
Mhm.
Like, it not even just, like, on the show, right? But, like, that demographic is what gave them a number 1 single. That demographic is what got them across to the US. That demographic is, like, how they found themselves off the X Factor with a solid landing pad, unlike a lot of the other X Factor winners who come off with a different marketing demo, right? Like a different audience demo. So like that audience really gave them their standing ground to grow. But at the same time, it also branded them as a kids group for, the next 10 years.
Yeah, because now I'm not gonna say like primarily the hate they get, but a large amount of the hate they get is from parents who still think that they are that kids group when they're not anymore. And
Yeah,
so
like the hate
that
they
set
get
them
like
up.
as a group, not individually, but like as a group is really geared towards like the general public, the older general public, thinking that like they are for children.
Yeah, so that just kind of set them up for that without really realizing it.
They had a Disney Star issue, except it wasn't Disney.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
That one's a weird bittersweet pro con, because like without that, if they had chosen a different demographic, I don't think they would have won. I don't think they would have had success afterwards.
Mhm.
But it screwed them later.
Yeah.
So that's a heavy pro con one. Sorry, I think I interrupted you though. Do you have more?
No, that was the end.
Okay. Moving on to the salute era. Woo woo. Um my pros are, we got the Neon Lights tour, so that was exciting. We got a US opening tour, which again, we're pushing the US again. That was really exciting. We got dark R&B mix, we got more harmonies, we had a cohesive sound to the album. I think it was more empowering. I mean, obviously, like, we're big fans of Salute. Um, And we also got out of the UK for tour. We went to Japan, and then we upgraded from theaters to arenas, which is a big deal. We got more choreography. So those were like, I mean, there are a ton of, I think, pros to the slew era, but those are the ones that I have listed here.
Yeah, I pretty much have everything that you said, so I'll just like recap a little bit so I'm not getting too repetitive. Um, the Neon Lights tour definitely gave them a lot of exposure, so that was exciting. Um, and even though like they had to cancel the US tour, I feel like it still helped them out, so that's good. The tour just was overall a lot better. They knew more of what they were doing. They had better like props, better backgrounds. It was an arena. Um, the whole album and even like just the entire era was a lot more mature. Um, and I feel
More
like I don't,
cohesive.
yeah, I don't have this listed in here, but I feel like they started to find like their styles a little bit more in this era. They started to
They
know
also
like what they
stopped
liked and
trying
what they
to be the
didn't.
Spice Girls by like having like symbols and identities.
Yeah, they started to like be more themselves instead of what like the label was pushing on them, what the public was pushing on them, what they were pushing on themselves. They started to like come into their own a little bit more. So that was fun to see.
Yeah, I think the label, and even X Factor was really trying really, really hard to push them as the new Spice Girls, and they
Mhm.
obviously, even still get that comparison. But what I mean is, like, they had the symbols that were in wings that lasted the entire DNA era. Like those symbols were on the stages for like the DNA tour. Their styles were literally like the identity that the label wanted to push on them was literally how they were styled fashion wise, like to an over the top extent. Like it was literally used to like try to like you should be able to look at them and know which girl is which, and not just like their personal style. And so I feel like in the salute era they really like stopped pushing that so hard, and they just kind of trusted that the girls personalities could stand on their own. And that like they didn't all have to have this like really niche identity in the group that was like completely different to each other,
Yeah, definitely.
which like thank God.
No,
Do you have anything else?
that was it.
Cons. Well, they canceled the US tour. That was unfortunate. We got Japan dates and we got an arena tour, but we didn't get Europe or like Australia or anything. So not like as much of an expansion as it could have been, especially with the US tour being canceled. Okay, so another one I have is that like the whole era is lipped. Like it's annoying how much of it is lip synced. Um, so yeah, that's a bit annoying.
So I pretty much had the same stuff. The only thing that I had differently was I put a lot of their performances were very repetitive. Like each performance had a similar set list. It was always like salute, it was always move, like goes on and on. So I feel
Isn't
like
that true of every era?
yeah. Um I also think it might just be because they didn't have as many songs released then. Um so like it was already like defaulted to that, so that might be why I feel like they did it a lot more.
Oh,
But
oh, you mean like as far as their songs and not like
yeah.
the set list itself? Because I was gonna say like they perform the same set list every time. That's why last time we talked, like knew what the Brazil set list was based off of the LM5 tour set list. It's the same thing.
Yeah, no.
um,
I feel
but
like
you mean like of their original songs because they didn't have a lot. That meant that like they also were performing like Dark Horse and like Talk Dirty to Me every time.
yeah, and like cuz I started to do a little bit more in like Glory Days and LM5 where they would perform songs like on the album that they hadn't performed yet, and I feel like with Salute there were a lot of songs that they only performed on the tour that I wish would have been performed like at a venue or at like the Jingle Bell Ball or Summertime Ball. I don't remember which one they if they attended that year. I don't remember all the years.
Oh
Um
yeah, in the Salute and Get Weird era, they were definitely trying to still like gain credibility by doing cover songs
yeah,
on
so I
tour.
feel like it was just very repetitive to me.
All right, I understand now. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that was it. You're good.
I was just confused because I was like, they perform the same thing all the time, and I was like, but you meant like of like their actual songs.
Yeah.
um. Okay, so that is our salute era, and moving on to get weird. For pros, we had an expanded world tour, meaning we got Europe and Australia um and a where is it they went? They went to the Philippines,
Philippines.
right?
Yeah.
Um, because that's not they didn't go to Japan this time. It was the Philippines. Yes, so that was exciting. We went to a bunch of new places. We had better costumes and better tour production. And so tour, big pro. We got our second number one single. Unfortunately, it was Black Magic. And we got our first Brit performance. That was exciting. We got so many acoustics and acapellas. We got tons of promo. There was still a US push. So they were in the US doing stuff. So that was all fun and dandy. Those are kind of my pros for the Get Weird era.
Yeah, I feel like the Get Weird era was just it was a really successful era for I said era really weird there. Era for them. Mainly cuz like they were already like doing pretty well in like the UK, but I feel like in the US they definitely um had a little bit of a bigger push even like more than they already did. And in other countries. It was a very long era, which I put as a good thing because because of it being a long era, we got a lot of content. the This is really just a YouTube thing, but uh,
Mhm.
we have like a lot of stuff to use and like a lot of stuff to see, and like we just got a lot of really good content because I mean this is kind of with Glory Days too, but they went to a lot of bigger interview places. Like they definitely started getting
They
it
had, like,
more
more
professional.
credibility a bit. Not maybe
Yeah,
not credibility as, like, artists in and of their own right, but credibility as, like, staples in the music industry that, like, actually have a place in the sense of, like, they're not just X Factor winners.
yeah. Like
Sorry, I
by
didn't mean to
now,
speak for you.
no, you're good. By now, I feel like they definitely like were holding their own. I mean, they were before, but people finally like started seeing them that way. Um,
I feel like in the Get Weird era, they were, like, seen as Little Mix and not as, like, the group that won the X Factor.
yeah, people finally like forgot about it. Um, and yeah, we already talked about the tour, but I'm gonna keep talking about the U.S. because, well, not just in this one, but in all the other, well, in
Well,
the one other
Glory
one,
days.
because I'm biased on that, and I like when they're in the U.S. So I'm gonna put that as all the pros. Um, yeah, that's really it. I just feel like this era gave us a lot of good content because we were getting interviews from places that they had never been before, and a lot of them were a lot bigger. Um, for example, like they went to Clever a few times. I'm pretty sure. Um,
Yeah, they, like,
yeah,
skipped Clover during the Salute era. They went during DNA, but they didn't
yeah.
go during Salute.
So it was just nice to see.
Yeah, so, those are our pros. Cons. We had a delayed era. So it was a long wait for the album. They didn't write on the singles. The album itself, in my opinion, is a con. Uh, and as much as, like, there was still a US push, there was, like, no attempt for a tour in the US,
hmm
which is disappointing. And then I have Perry's voice with a frowny face because oof, she went it got rough for her on that like the arrow was long, but like it took a toll on her voice.
So I only really have two because these were like the stronger ones for me. I the They almost took a step back in maturity, if that makes sense.
Almost.
They tried to be nice. They had a very younger sound in DNA, like we mentioned, and then Salute they stepped it up a lot. So like, it was still geared towards a I don't want to say younger, but like a young ish audience, but it still overall felt more mature and cohesive. And then they fell back a little bit by making it a lot more pop, a lot more just for younger kids. Um,
Yeah, it's really interesting to kind of piggyback off that really quick.
mhm.
So like when I say I grew out of Salute, I mean that like the perspective the girls took when writing the songs and picking the songs for the album, it really hits me as being like a perspective coming from four young girls in their 20s. So like adults, but like very much just starting out, very much like trying to find their footing in a new industry and a new job, surrounded by people who don't take them seriously. Like that is very much the perspective that almost all of Salute is coming from. So like the sound and like the like vibe of it is so much more mature than DNA, but that youthful perspective of like feeling like you have something to prove and like everyone's against you and like that type of stuff is very youthful. And like that's what I mean when I say that like I've outgrown Salute. Like that's a very when you're young perspective. And then Get Weird doesn't have that, right? It doesn't come in that album is not based in that perspective. Even on the songs that the girls wrote on, that's not the perspective you're coming at. So like it's not youthful in the same way that Salute is, but it's more immature than Salute is in the way that it talks about certain subjects and like in its like sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like they tried to make it more mature by introducing topics that are more mature, but the way that they like went through with it took a step back.
Yeah, like the execution of trying to be more mature made them less mature.
Yeah. And then one more thing is just I just wasn't a fan of the singles. I wish they would have chosen different ones from the album. Um, so that's my little con list, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't like the singles either. Um, but they did have a bigger budget, I think, uh on the Get Weird music videos, which is
Yeah, they
nice.
definitely did. And they were a lot more comfortable too in front of like the camera by now.
Yeah, yeah, their performance abilities really skyrocketed during the Get Weird era, especially on stage.
Hmm.
Okay, moving on to Glory Days. um, our special golden era.
Yeah.
There's so many of you who probably joined during LM5 or Confetti or something and like really love those eras and think they're the best and those albums are the best. And I'm just over here being like, objectively, Glory Days was it. Okay, so Glorious Era, the pros I have. We got the Dangerous Woman tour. So again, a US push. We love to see it. And this is a huge US push. That was Ariana Grande. And then we also got the Summer Shoutout tour, the Glory Days tour, and the Summer Hits tour. So we were swimming in tours during the Glory Days era. It was fabulous. And they all had different choreo, different set lists, different outfits. Like we were living high. And then we also got a standard, a deluxe, and a platinum of the album. So even though I didn't love the platinum version of the album, I can still acknowledge that like we got a shit ton of songs and material. And that's really exciting. We had a number one single, we had a number one album, we had the first Brit, we had another Brits performance. We have so many acoustics and a cappella and so many different countries. I can't even count. um, and we also got Freak.
Woo!
I had to mention that, guys. And I think this was also the era where they started to get taken seriously as artists. So, we talked about in the Get Weird era how like they lost that kind of X Factor label. I think the Glory Days era was when they actually started to be seen as like more serious artists. I don't think it like magically overnight they were like, oh, we respect you now. But like even getting their first Brit Award, like that's not voted on by the public, the one that they won. So like even them winning that shows like more respect coming on to them in that era. I just think they were just riding high on the Glory Days era, honestly.
Yeah. Um, it was just a really nice era because it was just so successful. It was just like a lot of stuff happened. We got the documentary. We like you said, got the Brit, we got number one. Like, just so much stuff happened that really helped their careers, and I think it really just pushed them to that next level even more. I do like the singles from this one. I'm happy with the ones that they chose. Wish Freak
Same.
was in there, but can't have
Can't have
everything.
everything.
We got Freak written in big letters on the side.
I wish we
um,
had gotten Freak or Down and Dirty instead of Touch. I said
yeah.
it.
um, yeah, I feel like this era, like I know I said that they kind of came into their own during the Salute era, but I feel like we almost got a new version of them during Glory Days because I feel like who they kind of like came off at not came off as, but like they showed even more of like themselves in this era because this era is like when they started getting on that more mature track.
I feel like
Um,
even them as people were more mature, more adult versions of themselves.
yeah,
Like they seem like they grew up a bit, you know?
yeah, um, and just I know I said this before, but like this era was just like a lot more professional. I feel like, which is something that I kind of like, just because it feels polished a little bit,
Mhm.
and so that's just like a personal thing. But it made it to where you said they got more like credit to them as like actual artists, and people saw them as artists and not just the X Factor winners.
Yeah. Cons time?
Yeah.
All right. I don't have a lot of cons, guys, but what I do have is that as amazing as the Glory Days era was, they were overworked a shit ton.
Mhm.
I am just based on what little we know about their mental health during that time, it was not good. So, Perry's anxiety being at its all-time high, Jessie had shared that like she got back from a tour or whatever and she was trying to immediately repack for a new tour and she broke down like crying. I'm not recalling an anecdote from Lee and Jade, but I'm sure they had them. Yeah, they were just so overworked. They toured for like a year straight and it definitely was. I'm so sorry. I just remembered a pro. Their group on stage presence never better than it was during Glory Days.
Yes.
Like dancing, the in syncness, the like chemistry, never better than it was on Glory Days.
Hmm.
Um, all of you get mad at me because you love the LM5 tour, or you want to believe they're super great now, like they are, but like I'm telling you, on stage, Glory Days era was it.
They're so powerful.
Yeah. The Glory Days era was like that because of how much they performed, because of how much practice and hard work went into it behind the scenes. They worked so hard to really try to break over into the US and to break over and like just worldwide in general. They tried really hard during the Glory Days era. Okay, sorry, back to cons. uh yeah, so they were just super overworked and like their voices were overworked and Jade with the throat infection, even Perry who learned her lesson from the Get Weird era, lip syncing a lot of her high notes. They all were just a little rough. Lee was skipping high notes, Jessie skipped high notes. It was all just, by the time you got around to the Glory Days tour, like, oof. Like, props to Jade and Jessie for trying to, like, hit the freak notes every night, because that would have been so easy to lip. And, like, Jade did lip hers at the end because of her throat infection, but, like, that would have been so easy to just be like, you know what? These are hard." You
Hmm.
know, like I thought I wanted to do them when we were planning the tour, but now, after 7 months of touring and, like, we're performing, like, twice a day and, like, this is hard to hit, you know? Like, there are times where, like, Jessie would skip her secret love song and her FU and her power high note, and then she'd go for the freak one, like, prioritizing what she wants to hit. Same with Jade, like, and so it's just like props to them for doing Freak every night. um, anyway, that's my like especially Jade with like that's like her highest belt and like is like she's not the best at belting. So just props to her for going for it. Well she could because obviously with a throat infection she couldn't. Um so yeah, so anyway, overworked completely. And they also have less writing credits on the Glory Days album, which is a little disappointing. Um Obviously, they still have a decent amount, but, like, Get Weird, Glory Days era is a little meh on the songwriting. I feel like Salute was really the peak time for that. And then also, because they were trying to push them so hard in different demographics and in different countries and into, like, the more mainstream public and not just the fan base, they had so many features that, like, aren't necessarily that great. Um, so it was smart, but, like, as a fan who doesn't want there to be a feature all the time, a little disappointing. But at least we still got the originals, you know what I mean? Like, we
Yeah.
still got No More Sad Songs Without MGK, we still got Touch Without Kidding, we still got, Power Without Stormzy, although I think Power with Stormzy is better. Um, like, we still got the originals, but, like, the singles that went out were still, like, they were really pushing those features, like Oops and stuff. I mean, we don't need the original of Oops, but still.
So I have three things. One you already touched on, and I'll just like quickly just like go off what you said. They were definitely overworked, and it was like getting really bad towards the end because you could just tell that they were like not there. Like
Yeah.
it just it was just getting really bad. And you could even see it back in the documentary when they were like still towards like the middle-ish of like the era when they were, I think it was when they were recording vocals for the Brit
Oh,
Awards,
Jade,
like
yeah,
Jay
Jade
breaks
started
down.
crying. Totally forgot about that. I
Yeah,
mean, I knew
and
about that, but, like,
yeah, and like one of them, I don't remember who, so I'm not gonna guess, but one of them I know on stage was like complaining about like their chest hurting to like one of the other girls. Uh, it was Glory Days, but I
uh,
don't know which like where on the tour.
I think it was Perry,
Yeah, it
during
was
FU. It was Perry during FU.
yeah, so like you could just tell that it wasn't good for them. So that was an obvious con. Um, Another thing is that like because Shout Out to My Ex was released during that time, obviously, and that was like their lead single, they got a lot of Zayn comparisons, a lot of Zayn hate, a lot of Zayn was just always there in interviews, which was really annoying. Um, and a little redundant because he didn't need to be mentioned. So that's just something that kind of got on my nerves a lot.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I have is that I wish the aesthetic of the Glory Days tour was more like the LM5, as like coloring and stuff. Like I wish they had more of like that monotone, a little bit toned down feel.
The more, like, mature
Yeah,
colors
because
rather than, like, Glory Days, which was, like, a lot of pink and pastels and, like,
yeah,
bright colors and stuff, kind of like it was a matured theme off of Get Weird, but it was not as mature as LM5.
yeah, because like I like that to a certain extent, and I know that in like 2016, like that kind of was like what the aesthetic was at the time. But like looking back now, I wish it was a little bit toned down. That's
Mhm.
really all I had. That one, and even those aren't like too bad. So
No, like I said, Glory Days is the golden era.
yeah.
Everyone get mad at me in the comments, go ahead. Moving on to LM5. All right, the pros. We got our second Brit. They finally got to collab with Nicki Minaj. We got all of the girls kind of speaking out more, so like Lee on racism, Jesse's documentary, Perry on her anxiety. We got another Brit performance. Lead signed as songwriters. That's what I have for pros.
This is like what I said in the cons, but like I like the aesthetic of this era. I like how it was very simple. It was like coloring wise.
Mhm.
It was very simple. It was just very like toned down compared to everything else that they had done in the past, which is nice because that's more of what I like. It was a different style for them, so that was kind of fun because they had done two pop albums, so it was a little bit different. So that was a little bit fun to see. Um, yeah, we got some. This era had some pretty good interviews, um, and we also got more individual projects because before this they hadn't like branched off on their own, and this one they started doing their own thing, which was kind of fun to see. So we could see more of like what they liked and what they were interested in rather than just like talking about it. So yeah, that's kind of what I have.
Cons. No worldwide tour. Canceled Australia tour. Tour rescheduled. Only two singles. Delayed Think About Us music video. minimal LM5 songs on tour and almost zero acoustics. And to be clear, there was one intimate set of acoustics that we have really kind of crap recordings of, which is not me dissing the people who recorded it. Like, thank you to you for recording it. However, like they're just not official, and like the crowd was really loud, and that's great for the girls, but like as a content maker, not quite so great.
Mhm.
In general, the LM5 era, I feel like lost a lot of steam really quickly, and to me, the girls seemed like tired kind of early on.
Mhm.
Probably because the label drama behind the scenes, just based off like things Jade has said, but it made it like not quite as much of a fun era because the girls didn't really seem as into it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a con, guys. Oh no,
they
I'm in cons. I'm in the right area. God damn it.
Oh, I do have a pro that I didn't mention that I just thought of. We did get like the series like Eden and like dog training. We did get those like internet series stuff. So that was fun to see. That was a little bit different. Um okay, back to cons. Yeah, it's pretty much what you said. They had very limited promo compared to normal, so we didn't get as much as normal. Um they primarily stayed in the UK or near the UK, like in neighboring countries.
Yeah, they
Um
got Europe, but like,
and like a tiny bit of like New Zealand or something. Like,
I mean, they went there like one time, but then they didn't actually go there.
mm, um, yeah, I wish the tour just had like a bigger budget, went to more places. Um, the tour, I feel like the tour could have been really, really cool and really big, and because of whatever reason, it wasn't. So I feel like they took a step back in touring for that.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Um,
talked about this before, but we think the Glory Days tour was better than the LM5 tour. So
mhm,
it's like a little disappointing in that sense that the tour didn't get bigger and better.
yeah, I mean, on like the pro side, they had a consistent like message, I guess, but it just wasn't. It kind of took it distracted it from the fact that it was a smaller tour.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I
Oh,
have.
also cons with the LM5 era, on stage stuff, kind of a disaster.
Mm,
Um, as far as like group on stage stuff, kind of a disaster. Out of
yeah,
sync dancing, just like not as much interaction between the girls, like more choreographed, more staged, so like not as genuine and fun to watch as some of the other tours.
more props.
Yeah, more, yeah, like it just like it was less intricate choreography. Like I think like on stage group stuff, like con for the
Mm.
LM5 era took a step back. I know some of you probably are thinking like, oh, but you forgot to put like the women empowerment on the pro side. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. I don't need to expand more on that. If you want an expanded comment on that, you can go watch the LM5 album ranking. But we did not forget, so please don't comment that we forgot. um, moving on to the confetti era. This is a rough era for a lot of obvious reasons. However, I have The Search. We got a number one single. We got the EMAs. And I have a fourth one that I'm going to hold on to until after we've talked about the cons.
um, yeah, I have like the search. They went to Brazil.
Oh, yeah,
They
Brazil. It's a good one.
This era, I feel like they had a lot of big opportunities, which was nice. So like they
This
were like kind
era
of
had a lot of potential before
yeah,
COVID.
yeah. And they were really excited at the beginning of the era, which was fun to see because, like, obviously during LM5, because of all the behind the scenes stuff, they kind of like lost it a little bit because they were so stressed about it. But this era, because they knew that they like felt more free, they had a lot more excitement going into it. So that was really fun to see.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
like they were really thinking that like we can recapture Glory Days momentum
yeah,
in Confetti. I feel like they had like this really like as a group like this renewed like determination and like energy to like just like pick up where Glory Days left off and kind of like let LM5 kind of, let it die. As
mhm,
much as like they love that album and stuff, like I think they were really excited to try to like kind of head back out there.
Yeah. And like the last thing I have is that at the beginning of like COVID, we got a lot of interaction between them, like on live streams, which we had never gotten like an Instagram live, like where they would go on to each other's. So I take that as a con because it was kind of fun to see them like try to figure it out and all that stuff.
Although I do have to say,
So
I miss the like lives that they used to do in the DNA era, or like the videos they used to
yeah,
record like all together, like Mixer Mondays, and like this should have gotten DNA, guys. Sorry, but like, I didn't think about it till you said that, but those like all those like little videos and behind the scenes stuff that they recorded as part of DNA was really cute. I miss that.
yeah. Oh, also, I didn't put
Oh,
this in
Glory
here.
Days. How did we not mention there was a documentary?
I did.
Oh, okay, good.
I did like it was brief, but I think I said it. I have it written down. I don't actually know if I said it. um, Another thing with confetti that I forgot about is that we got I mean we got something similar to this like back a little bit, but we got long lives of like for example like the games night we got the Eyes on the Sunrise one. Um
I don't count that as a pro.
oh really? I just thought it was different, so I added it in.
One girl showed up.
Okay, that's true. It was the intent, the thought was there.
The intent was there, and I
Yeah.
don't fault Jessie because she very clearly physically could not get there. Like, there was nothing she was gonna be able to do about that besides develop magical powers and transport herself there,
Or swim, I
teleport
don't
herself
even
there.
know.
Yeah, like, there was I do not fault Jessie for that. There was no fucking way that she could have showed up. I have a different opinion about Larry. Just primarily being that, like, that event was planned and the girls would have known that they had to quarantine for 2 weeks coming back in after a vacation, and they
Mhm.
still chose, knowing they wouldn't be able to show up in person, they still chose to go on vacation at that time, whereas, like, Jade went on vacation afterwards so that
Yeah.
she'd be able to show up. So I honestly was, like, a little displeased with that. It felt like they weren't prioritizing Little Mix and, like, the attempt to kinda get things back on track once COVID restrictions were lifting a little bit.
Mm.
So I don't count that as a pro, I would count that as a con personally. It was a cool idea if it had worked out, I think it would have been a really cool idea, but I'm really disappointed with the way it worked out.
Yeah.
Alright, biggest con, biggest obvious con, we lost a member.
Yeah.
So Jesse left. We got no OT4 performance of Sweet Melody. That's really disappointing. We have almost 0 performances in comparison to other eras. We had a dead first and second single because of COVID. First of all, there was COVID. We have no acoustic performances. I mean, you can count Touch, but Touch is not a confetti song. So
Mhm.
we got no acapellas. The like live streams were cute, but also like it was very clear the girls didn't want to be on them.
Yeah.
Like it was very clear that like they were being told to do them by their label and they weren't really like genuine. Oh, I want to talk to you guys, or like we want to like we were already going to be on this Zoom and we decided to invite you guys in. Like it was very clear that like someone had told them they had to do it, which made it, and for me at least, a little bit less fun because it felt like they didn't really want to be there. Those are kind of the general cons I have. I have a lot of like nitpicky cons, but those are the general ones I have.
Yeah, I have like the same stuff. Really, I mean like COVID really like just ruined this era, which I know like isn't their fault obviously, but it did definitely like put a little damper on that.
I feel like the like complete halt too, like kind of killed the momentum and the excitement they had at the beginning.
Because they were really
Um,
excited.
yeah, they seemed so excited, and I kind of felt like come COVID, they kind of like distanced themselves from the group.
Mhm.
Um, in the sense of like they've all decided like to start focusing on individual stuff rather than group stuff.
Yeah.
which, like, individual stuff is great and fine, and that's totally fine, and obviously it's easier to do individual stuff during a pandemic than it is to do group stuff, but I personally think that's, like, kind of disappointing after, like, it seemed like they were really gonna, like, refocus on group stuff for the
Mhm.
confetti era, and then, like, the exact opposite happened.
Yeah. Yeah, the, only other thing I have is that I wasn't a fan of, like, the singles they chose. I wish they would've chose I mean, besides Sweet Melody, obviously, but,
Oh, yeah, breakup song and holiday disaster single choices.
yeah, I wish, they would've
We're
done different
continuing
ones.
that trend from LM5.
I wish they would've done different ones, and wish they would've gotten to to have done the music videos that they had originally planned.
Alright, so here's my controversial pro that I was holding off on that I may have edited out, who knows? Uh, I'm counting Jessie making solo music as a pro.
Yeah.
I'm still angry at all of you guys because everywhere I go, I see fucking stupid comments from mixers, quote unquote mixers, about why she left, about her making music. And I'm going to continue to be angry about it as long as I keep seeing those comments from people who are supposed to be fans. I don't care if the general public is saying it. I care if you all are saying it. um, so I'm still pissy about it, and therefore I'm putting this pro in. Um, I think it's a pro. I'm excited. I like Jessie as an artist and a singer, and I'm excited about what she's going to do. And I really respect her as a person for not giving up on her dreams. And I think that she looks at the very least, right? Looks, because we can't see behind the scenes. She looks like she's never been happier. Like,
Yeah.
I can't name an era where she seemed happier than she does right now. So I'm excited. I think it's a pro.
Yeah.
Everyone come for me. Do you have any others?
No.
That is, I guess, like our little best and worst of each era. This was something that you guys had asked us for, I think, literally like right when we started the podcast. And so we finally got around to this one. And, if we forgot anything or you disagree or anything, definitely give a comment down below. Remember to be respectful of us, of other people in the comment section. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your support on all of these episodes. Shout out to you guys who listen every week and comment. We appreciate you. We see you, and it makes it fun for us that we get to see the same people come back and enjoy these week after week. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.